Well, really exciting to see so many people here coming to learn about Israel, and all the programs it has to offer. Right before I get straight into Kol Ami, I just want to tell you a bit about like how I found it for some context, and then I think it'll start to make more sense. So, essentially, I've been in Australia. I grew up as part of a youth movement and started my gap year program there. And when last year, and when Corona hit, that all fell apart. My program got cancelled, and I wasn't ready to come back to Australia, so I went program hopping for a bit, trying to work out where can I stay. And eventually, like right before Call was going to start, I'd kind of given up. I thought, okay, my year's over. I'm going back to Australia. And that's when I found Call and ended up staying, and I'm very happy I did. Um, so you may have seen it's called Mechinat Kol Ami. And I'm not sure if you've heard from any other mechinot yet, but one thing that's really significant about a mechina is they're actually an Israeli program, and they're programs that are designed for basically when Israelis finish high school, they have three options. They can start the army immediately, they can do what's called Shnat Sherut, a year of volunteering, or they can join a mechina, which is kind of a mixture of all these different things of army prep, of volunteering, and of learning significantly. Um, but Kol Ami is a really special mechina because um, it's not just for Israelis, but it actually allows for chulnikim or people from the diaspora to come as well. And for me, that was like the main thing that I really loved and found incredible about that experience, as opposed to the other three or four programs I was on last year on my gap year, was that you're living with Israelis, you're doing absolutely everything there is to do with Israelis. Like there isn't a difference between you. And so yeah, I think that's really special about it. And one of the main things of Kol Ami is they call themselves like they're really oriented around Jewish peoplehood and bringing together different Jews from around the world. So we had on mine there was Jews from Japan, Australia, Israel, the US, and I know there's actually sorry for context, there's many different campuses and you'll get to choose one. I'll speak more about that in a bit. But I know throughout the whole program there were people from Norway, from Canada, from Argentina and Brazil, and it's a really incredible way to meet new people. Um, yeah, and the other significant thing about Kol Ami is it's a mechina which is also oriented around leadership, and one of their main goals is to really not just teach leadership as a class, but give practical experience planning. Um, Again, I'll talk about that in a second. But before I go any further, I know how I remember like sitting there before I was trying to work out where I'm going to go in Israel and what I'm going to do. And I got really annoyed when people would just talk about this is what it offers, this is what we believe in without giving like, this is what happens. So I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, hang in there for 1 second. Um, all right. I'm hoping, can you see my presenter view or the regular view? John.
I can see, like, as in, I can see all the other ones down the bottom. Like, as in, I can
Oh,
see. I think it's not the presenter view. I'm not sure which one's which, but now I can see. Yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
cool. Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So I'm gonna start like really like large scale and then kind of like get in a little bit more detail. So on like a really broad note, the Mechina is a 6 month program, and it starts towards the end of our year, since it's based on the Northern Hemisphere schedule. But usually there's an options for Australians to only do 3 months as well. What's significant about it though is the first 3 months of the Mechina are all in English. Classes are in English. Obviously, Israelis are going to speak Hebrew. like with each other, but that's kind of, but there's just lots of English around, like that's the main language, and the Israelis there will generally know how to speak English. But at the 3 month mark, everything swaps, and suddenly all the classes start to be in Hebrew. Hebrew becomes the main language, and the idea I get in those first 3 months, we've got an ulpan, which is like learning, essentially learning Hebrew, and the idea is by the end of 3 months, you should be ready and, um, yeah, ready to speak Hebrew, which is like I think the best way you can learn Hebrew if that's something you're keen in for your year um, away. So I'll just look through this really quickly and kind of point out some different um, aspects of it. So the first is every 2 weeks is a free Shabbat, which means you're not on the Mechina, the rest of the time you are. And those free Shabbatot, often like you'll get hosted at the Israelis' houses who are there, which is like really nice to see what they do. I often went to family, and that was a really nice time to like become more connected with them if you've got family in Israel. Um, but yeah, that's the general vibe of that. I'll speak more about what a Shabbat is in the Mechina as well, because for me that was the most special time of week. Oh, but the other thing is looking around. You'll notice these blue squares throughout, which is like Peoplehood Seminars. So as I said, there's lots of different branches of Kol Ami around, and you'll be with your branch for most of the time. You'll volunteer, have classes with them, but every so often you'll like come together, and that's like an incredible time where you really get to meet those people from all over the world. The another things is there's different like hikings and weeks. So navigation week, they kind of drop you off somewhere with a compass and food, and you just have to work out where to go. Um, and then that kind of is aimed to prepare you for like this end week, Chovek Yisrael, which is a week you really like you plan in its totality from the beginning, and you kind of work on that and where you're going to be, where you're going to tour. You've got your own budget, and it's yeah, I guess that's the leadership elements of it coming through. Um, my favorite seminar was actually this Judea and Samaria week, which was essentially a conflict seminar, which I found incredible because um, we basically got to hear from organizations like Shovrim Shtika, Breaking the Silence, which is extremely progressive left-wing anti-occupation organization, to like the Settler Association of the West Bank and every other perspective in between. We went into the West Bank speaking to settlers and Palestinians living there. Um, and I don't know, that week for me kind of highlights what the Mechina is about and really getting those different perspectives in, which I found really powerful. Um, yeah, and you can see some of the different seminars here. And this is all on the website. So if you search Mechinat Kol Ami, that'll all come up. Um, great. So day-to-day stuff is also, um, I think that's where we get in. So there's classes, and like my favorite ones were climate change and philosophy and Zionism and Jewish history, and there's a whole range of them. And also we kind of take turns running classes for each other. And that kind of plays into like the way the Mechina is run is based off of this like idea was we control it completely. So at the beginning, you'll split off into committees. Like we had a Judaism and culture committee, a food committee who was in charge of all the creating menus and doing the shopping because we have to do all our own cooking. There is a Tochen committee that literally you're the ones in contact with the educators. You organize what classes you want. Um, and so a lot of, and then there's other things, a volunteering one, which kind of does that. Um, and I think that agency as well is something I really loved about Kol Ami was we created the experience. We had staff to guide us and help us work out how to sort out budgets and that, but we had a lot of control. Um, the other thing is, I guess, this community service part of it. So depending on which location you end up, which like branch of Kol Ami you end up in, there's different things, but it's all oriented around helping the local community. So I was at a branch called Carmiel in Carmiel, and we were based in a youth village. So there were about 200 to 250 kids from like 5 to 17 who all couldn't live at home because they were neglected or their parents couldn't look after them, and so they were all living in this village, in houses of about 12 kids with like a parent. And so what we did is in pairs we were each assigned to like one of the houses, and we spent lots of days really going, helping these kids, helping with homework, playing. It was an incredible village with lots of facilities, and a lot of what we did was giving these like parents who came in to look after 12 kids like a break so they could relax. And yeah, that for me was actually the most I got out of it, was in this village and really just spending the time there, because it wasn't like we left and we went in and then we went in sometimes to volunteer. We actually lived inside of the village. So we were around these kids all the time, and it meant when we were walking to and from class, we would stop by the houses to say hello to the kids that like we became good friends with or mentors to. Um, and then I think the last component of the Mechina is, I mentioned it before, the Tiolim, where we go on lots of hikes and, well, when you're not in lockdown at least. Um, and then there's also, because most of the Israelis there and even some of the Chulnikim, I know quite a few of the North Americans on my program, they started being like, yeah, yeah, I'm going back. And they ended being like, no, no, I'm making Aliyah and joining the army. So there is an element of trying to make sure people are fit and um, know what they're getting themselves into when they join the army. So part of that was that pre-army seminar you may have seen on the slide before. I was just looking at the different roles of the army, looking at IDF ethics, and all sorts of different things. Um, so this is kind of an example of a week. Now mine didn't exactly look like this, but it's very, very similar. Um, so you'll see here at the beginning, there's says optional tefillot. So one of the campuses in Migdal Oz is like for observant Orthodox Jews, and that's like a place that's very much run according to an observant Orthodox um, like way of life. But then the other five, I think it's five campuses, are all pluralist in the sense that you have Jews from all different denominations. Most of the Israelis are secular, which I was on one of those, and I found it incredible just getting to know how different people connect to Judaism, what people's different ways of life was, when it was, what it's like when a Mizrahi runs Kabbalat Shabbat as opposed to a Sephardi Jew or an Ashkenazi Jew, and all those different things. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'll let you skim here. I'll also keep an eye. Feel free to text the chat if you have any questions you want to ask. Um, but until I get it, I'll just talk a bit about Shabbats that we have in the Mechinot. So, um, Shabbat was like by far the best time of week. Um, so much fun. And we always started it with like singing in a circle with a guitar, and then those who wanted would do Kabbalat Shabbat. But it was very much this time of like coming together. And what's so incredible about any gap year program in Israel is it's such a intense period, but such a beautiful like time that you become friends and make the deepest connections so quickly. And I think that really shined through on Shabbat. Um, yeah, so I would 100% recommend Kol Ami. It's incredible. You get to live with Israelis, and brilliant educators as well. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Avishai, thanks so much. You've done very well for time because I've only got about just under a minute left. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they'd like to ask Avishai, having just been on the program, and would like more information about? Does anyone have anything that they'd like to ask? We'll just wait a little bit just to see if anyone does. Anyone have any questions? Let me just see here. I'll check the Q&A. Okay, so there's a question: how many people in a group?
There are 30, about 30 in each campus.
Okay, so there's another question. If you come from Australia, does that mean it's only a 3-month program?
It's really your choice. I know I actually only did 3 months. I know Australians who've done 6 months as well. They would recommend 6 months. Honestly, I wish I did 6 months because I wish I was there for the Hebrew part. And you've just become really connected with a group of people after 3 months. It's pretty hard to say goodbye. But um, yeah, so it's really your choice.
Unless anyone has any other questions, that's all I think we've got time for today. Avishai, thank you so much for your time and for coming to speak. It was really great to hear about the Mechina Kol Ami program. Hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.